A black boy with one meal, his only meal for the entire week. An elderly couple stranded on a cold highway. White, shivering, helpless. In this part of Georgia, people like Miles Edwards were invisible, stepped over, forgotten. 3 cars had already passed the old couple. 3 cars that slowed down, then sped away when they saw the black child approaching. Too poor, too dark, too risky. But this 11-year-old boy didn't calculate. He didn't hesitate. He walked toward them. He had nothing. Just a box of fried chicken. His dinner. His tomorrow's breakfast. His only food. And he gave it all away. To strangers. What Miles didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was who these 2 old people really were, and what they would do for him the very next day. This is that story. But first, you need to see where Miles came from. Macon, Georgia, a town the world forgot. Miles Edwards lived in a small house near the railroad tracks. Blue paint peeling off the walls, porch steps that creaked with every footstep. A yard with a vegetable garden that had seen better days. Inside, the house was clean. Spotless, actually, but empty. Furniture from decades past. Faded photographs on the walls. One photo stood out. A young woman, beautiful and smiling, holding a newborn baby. That was Miles's mother, and that baby was him. She died 2 years ago. Cancer. No insurance. No money for treatment. She fought as long as she could. Then she was gone. Now Miles lived with his grandmother, Ethel Edwards, 68 years old, retired nurse, arthritis in both knees, high blood pressure, and not enough money to buy her medication every month. There were no photos of Miles's father anywhere in the house. Not one. Miles had asked about him many times. The answer was always the same. Your daddy left when you were 3. Don't waste your thoughts on someone who didn't want to stay. So Miles stopped asking. But late at night, when the house was quiet and the trains rumbled past, he would wonder, what did I do wrong? Why didn't he want me? Questions with no answers. Every morning, Miles woke up at 5:30. Before his grandmother, before the sun. He would check the kitchen cabinet first. That morning, like most mornings, it was nearly empty. Half a box of oatmeal, a few cans of beans, bread that was starting to mold. Miles made oatmeal for his grandmother. He used the last of the brown sugar, all of it, for her. His own bowl? Just oatmeal and water. No sugar, no milk. He told himself it didn't matter. Grandma's knees hurt worse when it was cold. She needed something sweet to start her day. Before leaving, Miles touched the silver cross necklace hidden under his shirt. It belonged to his mother, the only thing he had left of her. Mama, watch over us today, he whispered. Then he wrote a note on the kitchen counter. Gone to school. Love you, Grandma. Don't forget your medicine. The walk to school was 2.5 kilometers. No school bus came to his street anymore. Budget cuts. Miles walked past boarded-up houses, past a church with a sign that read, "Free lunch every Wednesday," past Mr. Deacon's corner grocery store, where the old man waved at him every single morning. At the railroad tracks, Miles counted his steps. 128, the same number every day. He'd been counting since he was 7 years old. On the way, he stopped to help Mrs. Patterson, an elderly neighbor, drag her trash can to the curb. She didn't ask. He just did it. Miles, you're such a good boy. Here, take a cookie. No, thank you, ma'am. Save it for your grandchildren. He kept walking. Past a group of older teenagers who sometimes gave him trouble. Today, they ignored him. Miles breathed a little easier. Near the tracks, he found a crushed soda can. He picked it up and put it in his backpack. 20 more cans and he'd have 60 cents. Every penny counted. At Jefferson Middle School, Miles sat in the front row, always prepared, always paying attention. His teacher, Ms. Taylor, handed back a history test that day. Miles scored 98%. She stopped at his desk, looked at him with kind eyes. "You have a gift, Miles. Don't ever let anyone tell you different." "Thank you, ma'am. I want to make you proud." At lunch, Miles went through the free lunch line. A small sandwich, an apple, a carton of milk. That was it. He ate slowly, made every bite last. His friend Deshawn sat across from him watching. "Yo, did you just eat the apple core too?" Miles smiled. "More fiber." Deshawn laughed, but Miles wasn't joking. After school, Miles didn't go home. He went to the library. The only working computer was in the back corner. He searched for scholarship programs. Gates Millennium, Posse Foundation, Quest Bridge. He wrote the names in a small notebook. His ticket out. His plan. Graduate high school. Get a scholarship. Become a doctor. Take care of grandma. Simple. Clear. Impossible for most people from his neighborhood. But Miles believed. At 4:30 that afternoon, Miles left school and headed toward Oak Street Church. Every Friday they gave away leftover food from the week. That was how he and his grandmother ate on weekends. But Miles didn't know that today would be different. He didn't know that 1 mile away, a silver sedan was about to break down. He didn't know that an elderly couple was about to be stranded in the cold. He didn't know that everything was about to change. Highway 41. Just past the abandoned Sunoco gas station. The sun was setting fast, temperature dropping, 11 degrees Celsius and falling. Harold Whitmore was behind the wheel, 74 years old. White hair, calm face, but worried eyes. His wife Margaret sat beside him. 71. Former pediatric nurse, 40 years of caring for children. Now she was the one who needed help. They were on a road trip, old-fashioned, no GPS, just paper maps and the open road. Then the engine coughed, the dashboard lit up with warning lights. Harold pulled to the shoulder just as the car died completely. He tried to restart it. Nothing. Not even a click. Margaret checked her phone. No signal. Harold checked his. Same. "Harold, my hands are already cold." Margaret had circulation problems. In weather like this, her fingers turned white, then blue, then numb. Harold stepped out and opened the hood. He stared at the engine like it was written in a foreign language. He knew nothing about cars. A truck drove past. Harold waved. It didn't stop. Another car. Same thing. A third. The driver slowed down, looked at them, then sped away. Harold's shoulders dropped. This is what the world looks like when no one knows your name, he thought. In his pocket, he felt a keychain. He pulled it out without thinking. An old habit. Something he did when he was anxious. The keychain had 2 letters engraved on it. D.W. Daniel Whitmore. His son. Dead 15 years now. Margaret saw him holding it. Her eyes softened with old grief. Neither of them spoke. Behind them, the abandoned Sunoco station stood like a ghost. A faded sign read, "Closed. Thank you for 43 years of service." Another reminder that this community had been left behind. Half a mile away, Miles Edwards was taking his usual shortcut. He was carrying a styrofoam container. Still warm, Mr. Deacon had stopped him outside the grocery store. "Take this, son. I made too much. Don't argue with me." Miles had tried to refuse. Mr. Deacon wouldn't hear it. Inside the box, fried chicken, collard greens, cornbread. The most delicious meal Miles would have all week. He planned to split it with his grandmother. Half tonight, half tomorrow. The smell drifted up through the container. His stomach growled. But as Miles approached the old Sunoco lot, he stopped. Something was different. A silver sedan. Hood open. An old man pacing back and forth. An old woman sitting inside the car, arms wrapped around herself. Miles's first instinct, keep walking. It was getting dark. He didn't know these people. And in this part of town, a black boy approaching a white couple's car could mean trouble. But then he looked closer. The old woman was shivering. Her breath was visible in the cold air. The old man looked lost, defeated. A voice echoed in Miles's head, his mother's voice. Miles, you can't fix everything, but you can fix something. He thought about his grandmother, how she shared her tea with neighbors even when they had nothing. He thought about Ms. Taylor. You have a gift, Miles. He looked at the food in his hands, the only valuable thing he owned. His stomach growled again. Another car drove past the stranded couple. Didn't even slow down. Miles watched the old man's shoulders sag. That was the moment. Miles took a deep breath. His stomach twisted with hunger. And he started walking toward them. He didn't know that in 30 minutes he would give away everything he had. He didn't know that this old man had spent 15 years searching for someone exactly like him. He didn't know that tomorrow his whole life would change. All he knew was that two people needed help, and he could do something about it. His worn sneakers crunched on the gravel as he crossed the parking lot. The old man turned around. For a moment, his posture stiffened, defensive, wary. Then he saw what was approaching. A small black boy, thin jacket, old backpack held together with safety pins, holding a styrofoam container. Not a threat, just a child. Miles stopped a few feet away, looked the old man in the eyes. Excuse me, sir. Are you and your wife okay? Harold Whitmore looked at the boy standing before him. Torn jacket, no zipper, backpack held together with safety pins, and yet this child was asking if they were okay. Car trouble, Harold said, his voice guarded. We're fine, waiting for help. Miles looked around. No other cars, no houses, no lights except the dying sunset. Have you been able to call anyone, sir? Harold hesitated. No signal. Miles nodded slowly. He was thinking. The car door opened. Margaret stepped out, shivering visibly. Her lips had a slight blue tint. She looked at Miles, and something in her expression changed immediately. 40 years of working with children. She knew a good kid when she saw one. Hello there, she said warmly, despite the cold. What's your name? Miles, ma'am. Miles Edwards. She smiled. That's a beautiful name. Miles noticed her hands trembling. Her thin sweater wasn't enough for this weather. Ma'am, you should get back in the car. I'll figure something out. Margaret and Harold exchanged a glance. This child, this poor, obviously hungry child, was trying to take care of them. Miles walked to the edge of the road, looked both directions. Empty. Then he remembered. Mr. Earl's farm was about 1.5 miles east. Mr. Earl had a truck and a phone. Miles turned back to the couple. Sir, there's a farm about 1.5 miles that way. Mr. Earl has a truck and a telephone. I can run there and be back in 20 minutes. Harold shook his head. Son, it's getting dark. You shouldn't. With all due respect, sir, your wife is cold, and I run fast. Harold stared at the boy. Who was this child? But Miles wasn't done. He looked down at the styrofoam container in his hands. The fried chicken smell filled the cold air. His stomach screamed. He opened the box. Golden fried chicken, steaming collard greens, warm cornbread. Margaret's eyes went wide. Harold stood frozen. Miles held the box out to Margaret. Ma'am, this is still hot. Please eat. It'll help you stay warm. Oh, sweetheart, I can't take your food. I already ate, ma'am. A lie. His stomach tightened. Margaret looked at the boy's face, at his hollow cheeks, at the hunger in his eyes that he was trying so hard to hide. She knew he was lying, but she also saw something else, something rare. This child was giving away his only meal for strangers, without hesitation. Harold watched the exchange. Something shifted in his face. His defensive posture melted away. "Thank you, Miles," Margaret said softly, accepting the container. Miles nodded. Then he turned and started running. His worn sneakers pounded against the cold asphalt. His backpack bounced with each stride. The darkness swallowed the road ahead. But he kept running. Back at the car, Margaret opened the container. The chicken was still warm, perfectly seasoned. She took a small bite, closed her eyes. "Harold, this is delicious. That boy gave us his dinner." Harold didn't respond. He was staring in the direction Miles had disappeared. "Did you see his jacket?" Harold said quietly. "It doesn't even have a zipper." "I saw. He lied about eating. His stomach was growling." Margaret reached out and took Harold's hand. He pulled out the keychain again. The letters DW glinted in the fading light. "Daniel would have done the same thing," Harold whispered. "I know," Margaret said. They sat in silence, remembering their son, and thinking about the black boy who had just run into the darkness to save two strangers. 22 minutes later, headlights appeared. An old pickup truck rumbled into the parking lot. Mr. Earl, a white farmer in his 60s, stepped out. Miles was in the passenger seat, breathing hard but smiling. "You folks the ones with the dead car?" Mr. Earl asked. "That's us," Harold said. "This boy here ran almost 2 miles in the dark to get me. Nearly gave me a heart attack banging on my door." Miles climbed out of the truck, embarrassed. "I knocked normal, Mr. Earl." "Son, you knocked like the police coming to arrest somebody." Mr. Earl connected jumper cables. The sedan roared back to life. Harold reached for his wallet, pulled out several bills, at least $500 visible. "Please, let me pay you for your trouble." Mr. Earl waved him off. "Don't thank me. Thank the boy. He's the one who came running." Harold turned to Miles. "Son, let me give you something for what you did." Miles stepped back, shook his head. "No thank you, sir. I didn't do it for money." "Then at least let me—" "Sir, my mama taught me that kindness isn't something you sell. It's something you give away. I'm just glad you and your wife are okay." Harold stood speechless. In his 74 years, he had met thousands of people, executives, politicians, billionaires, people who would do anything for money. And here was an 11-year-old boy, poor, hungry, giving away his only meal and refusing payment. Harold looked at Miles, really looked at him, and felt something he hadn't felt in 15 years. Hope. 15 years, he thought. 15 years I've been searching for someone like Daniel. And tonight, on this cold, dark road. Margaret approached Miles. She knelt down to his eye level. "Miles, can you tell me where you live? I'd like to thank your family properly." Miles hesitated, then nodded. He gave them his address. Margaret smiled and touched his cheek gently. "You're a special young man, Miles Edwards. Don't ever forget that." Miles didn't know what to say. No one had called him special in a long time. "Thank you, ma'am. Get home safe." He watched the silver sedan drive away into the darkness. Then he turned and started walking home. Hungry, cold, but somehow full. The walk home felt longer than usual. The temperature had dropped below 6 degrees. Miles's thin jacket did nothing against the wind. He shoved his hands in his pockets and kept moving. His stomach growled so loud he laughed. "Shut up," he told it. "Tomorrow." But even as he walked, Miles felt something strange. peace. He thought about the old couple, the woman's kind eyes, the man's face changing from suspicion to something else, something soft. He wondered where they were from, why they were on that road. He hoped they made it home safe. When Miles reached his house, his grandmother was sitting on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, rocking slowly in her chair. The moment she saw him, relief flooded her face. "Lord, child, I was worried sick. It's dark out. Where's the food from the church?" Miles stood at the bottom of the porch steps. He didn't want to lie, but he didn't want her to worry either. "I gave it to someone who needed it more, Grandma." Ethel studied her grandson's face, his hollow cheeks, his tired eyes, his empty hands. Her expression shifted, pride mixed with sorrow. "Come here, baby." She pulled him into a tight hug, held him for a long moment. "Your mama would be so proud, Miles. Proud as the sunrise." Miles felt his eyes sting. He blinked it away. Inside, they ate what was left in the cabinet. Canned beans, stale bread, tap water. Grandma Ethel made it feel like a feast. She said grace, thanking God for another day and another chance to do good. Miles watched her eat, noticed how she took smaller bites than usual, leaving more for him. He didn't say anything, but he saw. "You gave your food to strangers?" Ethel asked between bites. "Yes, ma'am. An old couple. Their car broke down. The lady was shivering." Ethel nodded slowly. "Your mama raised you right, Miles. Even from heaven, she's raising you right." Miles's throat tightened. He looked down at his plate. "I hope I did the right thing, Grandma." Ethel reached across the small table and took his hand. "Baby, you always do." That night, Miles lay on his mattress on the floor, staring at the ceiling, hungry but calm. He touched the silver cross necklace under his shirt. "Mama," he whispered, "I hope you saw. I hope I made you proud." Then he closed his eyes and drifted to sleep. Miles didn't know that at that very moment, 50 miles away, Harold Whitmore was wide awake, sitting in a hotel room, laptop open, phone pressed to his ear. "Patricia, I need you to look into someone for me. A boy named Miles Edwards, Macon, Georgia, tonight." His wife Margaret sat nearby, still holding the empty styrofoam container. She hadn't put it down since they arrived. "What did you find?" Harold asked after a long silence. He listened. His face grew more serious with each word. "Mother deceased. Cancer. 2 years ago. Father abandoned the family. Lives with elderly grandmother. Chronic health issues. No insurance. Top of his class. Free lunch program." Harold closed his eyes. "Patricia, I want a full report by morning." He hung up, looked at his wife. "That boy is exactly who I thought he was," Harold said quietly. Margaret nodded. "He's like Daniel." Harold stared out the window at the dark Georgia night. 15 years, Margaret. 15 years I've been looking for someone like our son. Someone who gives without expecting anything back." He paused. "And tonight, on a cold highway, a hungry black boy gave us his only meal and refused our money." Margaret walked over and put her hand on his shoulder. "What are you going to do?" Harold's eyes were wet, but his voice was steady. "Tomorrow, we change that boy's life." The next morning, Miles noticed something strange. A black SUV was parked at the end of the street. Tinted windows. It hadn't been there yesterday. He watched it for a moment. No one got out. Probably lost, he thought. At breakfast, Grandma Ethel mentioned something odd. "Someone called this morning asking about you." Miles looked up from his oatmeal. "Who?" "They didn't say. Asked where you went to school, what our situation was. I didn't tell them nothing." Miles thought about the old couple from last night. Could they be connected? He pushed the thought aside. Probably a coincidence. He went to school, came home early. The SUV was still there. At 4 o'clock that afternoon, Miles sat at the kitchen table doing homework. Grandma Ethel was dozing in her chair by the window. Then it came. Knock. 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 Miles jumped. The knock was firm, polite, but deliberate. Grandma Ethel woke up. "Who's that, baby?" "I don't know, Grandma." Miles walked to the door. His heart was beating fast. He peered through the peephole. A white woman, middle-aged, professional suit, standing straight. Behind her, the black SUV. Miles took a deep breath, opened the door. The woman looked at him with warm eyes. "Miles Edwards?" "Yes, ma'am." "My name is Patricia Owens. I'm the executive director of the Second Chance Initiative." Miles had never heard that name before. Patricia continued. "I'm here because a very special couple wants to thank you. The couple whose car broke down last night on Highway 41. Miles's eyes widened. "The old man and woman?" "That's right." Grandma Ethel appeared behind Miles. Her eyes were cautious, protective. "Who are you? What do you want with my grandson?" Patricia turned to her with a gentle smile. "Ma'am, I'm here to change your grandson's life, for the better. May I come in?" Ethel looked at Patricia, then at the SUV, then back at this well-dressed stranger standing on her broken porch. Something in Patricia's eyes seemed genuine. Ethel nodded slowly. "All right, come in." The door opened wider. Patricia stepped inside. Miles watched her look around the small living room. The old furniture, the faded photos, the empty spaces. Patricia's eyes stopped on the photograph of Miles's mother. Then she turned to Miles. "Miles, do you know who the couple you helped last night really are?" Miles shook his head. Patricia smiled. "Then let me tell you, because what I'm about to say is going to change everything." Patricia sat down at the kitchen table. She motioned for Miles and Ethel to join her. "Miles, the couple you helped last night. Their names are Harold and Margaret Whitmore." She paused. Let the name hang in the air. Grandma Ethel's hand flew to her chest. "Lord Jesus, Lord Jesus." Miles looked at his grandmother, confused. "Grandma, do you know them?" Ethel couldn't speak. Her eyes were filling with tears. Patricia continued. "Harold Whitmore founded Whitmore Capital Partners in 1979. At its peak, the company managed over $30 billion. Mr. Whitmore is one of the wealthiest men in Georgia, perhaps in the entire South." Miles felt the room spin. 30 billion? That's right. Miles thought about last night. The old man in khaki pants. The old woman shivering in the car. The fried chicken. "He's a billionaire? And I gave him my food?" "Yes," Patricia said. "And that's exactly why I'm here." She pulled a folder from her bag. Official documents. A logo at the top. Second Chance Initiative. 15 years ago, Mr. Whitmore lost his only son, Daniel. He died of a congenital heart condition at 28 years old. Patricia's voice softened. "Daniel was a remarkable young man. He volunteered at orphanages, gave money to homeless people. He used to skip lunch so he could give his food to classmates who had less." Miles listened. Something about this story felt familiar. After Daniel died, Mr. Whitmore created the Second Chance Initiative. The purpose was simple. Find young people who embodied Daniel's spirit. People who give without expecting anything in return. Patricia looked directly at Miles. In 15 years, Mr. Whitmore has met hundreds of candidates, but he never personally selected anyone for the initiative. She paused. "Until last night. Until you." Miles couldn't breathe. Me? Yes, Miles. You. Patricia reached into the folder and pulled out a handwritten note. Mr. Whitmore asked me to read you this. She began. Miles, last night you gave away your only meal to 2 strangers. You ran almost 2 miles in the dark to find help. Then you refused payment because you believed kindness isn't something you sell. Patricia's voice wavered slightly. My son Daniel was the same way. For 15 years I've searched for someone like him, someone who gives without counting the cost. Last night on a cold highway I found that person. You, Miles. I found you. Grandma Ethel was sobbing quietly. Miles felt tears running down his own face. But, Patricia said, before I tell you what Mr. Whitmore wants to do for you, he has one question. Miles wiped his eyes. What question? Patricia smiled. If you had $1 million, no strings attached, what would you do with it? The room went silent. Grandma Ethel looked at Miles. Patricia waited. Miles could say anything. A new house, a car, travel the world. But he thought about his street, the church with the leaky roof, Mr. Deacon's store that was about to close, the school library with no books. He thought about his grandmother and her medicine. He thought about Deshawn, Mrs. Patterson, all the people who had nothing. I would fix this community, Miles said slowly. The church needs a new roof. Mr. Deacon's store needs new equipment. The school library needs books. He paused. And I would make sure my grandmother has her medicine. Every month, no matter what. He looked at Patricia. I would help the people who helped me. Patricia's smile widened. Her eyes glistened. That, she said, is exactly what Daniel would have said. She stood up. And that, Miles, is exactly what Mr. Whitmore hoped you would say. Just then the front door opened. Harold Whitmore stepped inside. Same man from last night. But now Miles saw him differently. This wasn't just an old man in khaki pants. This was a man who could buy the entire town without thinking twice. And he had come here, to this tiny house, to see Miles. Harold walked straight to the boy. No handshake, no small talk. He knelt down, a 74-year-old billionaire, on his knees, before an 11-year-old black boy. Miles, Harold said, his voice trembling, last night you gave me your only meal. You ran in the darkness to save strangers. You refused money because you believed kindness isn't for sale. Harold's eyes were wet. My son was like you, and I have spent 15 years looking for someone like him. He placed his hand on Miles's shoulder. Thank you, Miles. Thank you for reminding me that Daniel's spirit is still alive, in people like you. Miles couldn't hold it back anymore. For the first time in 2 years since his mother died, he cried. Not from sadness, from being seen, from being valued, from being loved. Grandma Ethel wrapped her arms around him. Harold placed his other hand on her shoulder. 3 generations, 3 strangers, standing in a tiny living room, connected by kindness. Patricia wiped her eyes and spoke. Miles, Mr. Whitmore would like to tell you what he's prepared to offer. To you, to your grandmother, and to this entire community. Miles looked up, still crying, still shaking. But for the first time in a long time, he felt hope. Patricia pulled more documents from her folder, official letterhead, legal signatures, the weight of real promises. Miles, the Whitmore Foundation would like to offer you the following. Miles held his breath. First, for you personally. Patricia read from the document. A full scholarship, to any university you choose, undergraduate and graduate. Tuition, room, board, books, and living expenses fully covered. No repayment required, ever. Miles's mouth fell open. Additionally, We will establish a trust fund in your name. $50,000. Managed until you turn 18. Then it's yours. Grandma Ethel grabbed the edge of the table. Her knees were weak. Patricia continued. Second, for your grandmother. She turned to Ethel with gentle eyes. Mrs. Edwards, we understand you've been managing chronic health conditions without adequate support. That ends today. Ethel's hand covered her mouth. Full medical coverage, specialists, medications, home care if needed, everything. Covered for life. Tears streamed down Ethel's wrinkled cheeks. Third, for this house. Patricia gestured around the small living room. The foundation will purchase this property and fund complete renovations. New roof, new plumbing, new electrical, insulation, air conditioning, everything this house needs. She looked at Miles and his grandmother. You will never have to worry about this home falling apart again. The room was silent except for the sound of crying, but Patricia wasn't finished. Finally, and this is the part Mr. Whitmore is most excited about, for the community, she pulled out another document. The Second Chance Initiative will establish a permanent program here in Macon. We are committing $5 million over 5 years. Miles stared at her. 5 million? Yes, $5 million for education, small business support, health care, infrastructure. Patricia pointed to the window. The church on Oak Street that needs a new roof? We'll fix it. Mr. Deacon's grocery store? We'll help him upgrade everything. Jefferson Middle School? We'll fund a new STEM lab and stock the library with 300 new books. She smiled at Miles. All of this, Miles, because of you. Because you showed Mr. Whitmore that this community deserves a second chance. Well, Miles couldn't process it. His brain was overloaded. But I just gave them some chicken. Harold, who had been standing quietly by the door, stepped forward. No, Miles. You gave us something no amount of money can buy. He knelt down again to meet Miles's eyes. 15 years ago, I lost my son. After Daniel died, I thought that kind of pure goodness had disappeared from the world. That people only cared about themselves. Harold's voice cracked. Then last night, a hungry black boy on a cold highway gave away his only meal to 2 strangers and refused payment, because his mother taught him that kindness isn't for sale. Harold placed both hands on Miles's shoulders. You didn't just help us, Miles. You restored my faith in humanity. That's worth more than all the money I have. Miles looked at this man, this billionaire, on his knees, crying. I don't know what to say, sir. Harold smiled through his tears. You don't have to say anything. Just promise me one thing. What's that? Never change. Never stop being exactly who you are. Miles nodded. I promise. Harold stood up and extended his hand. Miles shook it. For a moment, the distance between them, billionaire and poor child, white and black, old and young, disappeared completely. They were just 2 people who believed in kindness. Patricia cleared her throat gently. There's one more thing. Mr. Whitmore would like to make a public announcement. Next month. At City Hall. He wants the world to know about you, Miles. About what you did. And about what this foundation will do for Macon. Miles shifted uncomfortably. I don't need people to know. Harold nodded approvingly. I know you don't. And that's exactly why you should let them. He put his arm around Miles. The world needs to see that goodness still exists. That a boy with nothing can teach a man with everything. Your story will inspire others, Miles. More than you can imagine. Miles looked at his grandmother. She was still crying, but smiling now too. What do you think, Grandma? Ethel wiped her eyes, took a deep breath. I think your mama is looking down from heaven right now, and she is smiling bigger than she ever smiled before. Miles felt the silver cross under his shirt. Okay, he said quietly. I'll do it. Harold smiled. Patricia made a note in her folder. Then it's settled, Harold said. 1 month from now, we announce everything. And Miles, from this day forward, your life will never be the same. Miles nodded. He still couldn't believe it. 1 meal, 1 cold night, 1 choice. And everything had changed. 3 days later, everything seemed perfect. Miles and his grandmother were working with Patricia on paperwork. The foundation had already sent contractors to assess the house. A doctor's appointment for Grandma Ethel was scheduled. It felt like a dream. But not everyone was happy. That afternoon, Miles was at school. Grandma Ethel was home alone. A black Mercedes pulled up in front of the house, different from the SUV. A man stepped out, late 30s, expensive suit, slicked hair, cold eyes. He walked up the creaky porch steps and knocked. Ethel opened the door. Mrs. Edwards, I'm Victor Whitmore, Harold Whitmore's nephew. Ethel felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. What can I do for you? Victor didn't wait for an invitation. He stepped inside, looked around the small living room with visible disgust. I'll be direct, Mrs. Edwards. My uncle is a good man, too good. But he's 74 years old. Sometimes he makes decisions that aren't sound. Ethel straightened her spine. I don't understand. Victor turned to face her. His smile didn't reach his eyes. The Whitmore family has lawyers, many lawyers, and if there's any evidence that someone is taking advantage of an elderly man's generosity, we will act. Ethel's blood went cold. We're not taking advantage of anyone. Perhaps not, but appearances matter, don't they? Victor reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. He placed it on the table. $50,000, cash. Sign this paper agreeing to refuse any further contact with my uncle, and it's yours. No complications. No lawyers. Ethel looked at the envelope, then at Victor. Her hands were shaking. But not from fear. From anger. Get out of my house. Victor's smile faded. You have 48 hours to think about it. After that, things will get much more complicated. He straightened his tie and walked out. The Mercedes drove away. When Miles came home, he found his grandmother sitting in her chair, trembling, the envelope of cash still on the table. Grandma, what happened? She told him everything. Miles looked at the money, $50,000, more than his family had ever seen, but he didn't touch it. Grandma, he's trying to scare us. I know, baby, but I'm afraid. I don't want trouble. Mr. Harold isn't like that. I saw how he looked at me. He's not being fooled. He knows what he's doing. Ethel's eyes filled with tears. But what if they sue us? We can't afford lawyers. Miles was quiet for a moment. Then he stood up. I'm calling Patricia. He found the business card Patricia had left, dialed the number. Ms. Patricia, it's Miles Edwards. Something happened. Someone came to our house. He explained everything. Victor, the threats, the money. Patricia listened. Her voice grew harder with each detail. Miles, Victor has no authority whatsoever. Mr. Harold is completely mentally sound and has full control over his money. Victor has done this before. Tried to intimidate people Mr. Harold wants to help. What can we do? Don't worry. Mr. Harold already knows, and he's on his way. Miles hung up, looked at his grandmother. She said Mr. Harold knows. He's coming. Ethel nodded slowly, but worry still clouded her eyes. I hope she's right, baby. I hope she's right. That night, neither of them slept well. Victor had planted a seed of fear. but Miles refused to let it grow, because he remembered what his mother had taught him. Being afraid doesn't mean you don't act. It means what you're doing is important. Tomorrow he would face Victor, and he would not back down. The next day, Harold arrived at the Edwards house, but he wasn't alone. Patricia was with him, and a man in a suit carrying a briefcase, a lawyer. Victor was there too. He had come back, confident that his threats had worked. He was wrong. "Victor," Harold's voice was steel. "You came to this house. You threatened an elderly woman. You tried to bribe a child." Victor's smug expression flickered. "Uncle Harold, I was only protecting—" "Silence!" Victor's mouth snapped shut. Harold stepped closer to his nephew. "You weren't protecting anyone. You were protecting your inheritance. The money you think you're entitled to." Victor's face went pale. Harold continued. "Did you think I wouldn't find out? Did you think I don't know about the other families you've intimidated over the years?" The room was dead quiet. "I stayed silent because you're family. But today you went too far." Harold straightened his shoulders. "Effective immediately. You are removed from the initiatives board. You will have no voice in any foundation decisions." Victor's eyes went wide. "You can't—" "I just did. And if you continue to harass this family or anyone else, I will revisit my entire will. Do you understand?" Victor looked around the room. Harold, Patricia, the lawyer, Ethel, Miles. No one was on his side. He turned to Miles. His voice was bitter. "You think you won, boy?" Miles stood his ground, looked Victor straight in the eyes. "I wasn't trying to win anything. I was just trying to make sure nobody bullies my grandmother." Something in Victor's expression cracked. He grabbed the envelope of cash from the table and walked out without another word. The door slammed behind him. The Mercedes drove away. And just like that, it was over. Ethel collapsed into her chair, crying with relief. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Whitmore. I almost believed him." Harold walked over and knelt beside her. "You have nothing to apologize for. Victor is skilled at manipulation, but he won't bother you again." He looked at Miles. "You stood up to him. You weren't afraid." Miles shrugged. "I was scared. But my mama taught me that being scared doesn't mean you don't act. It means you're doing something that matters." Harold smiled. A real smile. Warm and full. Daniel used to say the same thing. He put his hand on Miles's shoulder. "You're even more remarkable than I thought, Miles Edwards. And now, with Victor out of the way, we can focus on what matters." He looked at Patricia. "Let's move forward. The announcement, the scholarships, the community investment, all of it." Patricia nodded. "Already in motion, sir." Harold turned back to Miles and Ethel. "From today on, no more interruptions, no more threats, just change, real change." He extended his hand to Miles. "Partners?" Miles shook it firmly. "Partners." 1 month later, the announcement came. City Hall was packed. Local news cameras, national reporters, everyone wanted to hear the story. Harold Whitmore stood at the podium, his first public appearance in 15 years. "Today, I am announcing the creation of the Macon Community Investment Program, a $5 million commitment over 5 years. The crowd murmured. But this program was not my idea. It was inspired by someone else. Harold turned and gestured toward the side of the stage. "A boy named Miles Edwards, 11 years old. He taught me something I had forgotten." Miles walked out, shy in his new button-down shirt. The crowd applauded. "1 month ago, my wife and I broke down on Highway 41. We were stranded, cold, helpless. 3 cars passed us without stopping." Harold's voice grew thick with emotion. Then Miles appeared, a poor black boy with nothing but a box of fried chicken. He gave us his only meal. He ran 2 miles in the darkness to find help, and when I tried to pay him, he refused. Harold looked at Miles. He told me his mother taught him that kindness isn't something you sell, it's something you give away. The room was silent. That night, Miles Edwards reminded me why I started the Second Chance Initiative, to find people like my son Daniel, people who give without counting the cost. Harold wiped his eyes. And so today, in partnership with Miles and this community, we begin something new. A reporter raised his hand. "Miles, how does it feel?" Miles leaned toward the microphone. "I just gave away some chicken. I never thought it would turn into all this." The room laughed, then applauded. The headlines wrote themselves. 11-year-old gives away only meal. Triggers $5 million community investment. The story went viral. But the real impact was local. Jefferson Middle School received a new STEM lab, 300 new books for the library, a bronze plaque at the entrance, the Daniel Whitmore Memorial Library. Ms. Taylor cried when she saw it. "I always knew you'd change things, Miles." Mr. Deacon's grocery store received new equipment, new refrigerators, a fresh produce section. He stood in the middle of his renovated store, shaking his head. "I gave that boy a box of chicken. He gave me back my whole business." Oak Street Church got a new roof, new pews. The first community dinner served over 200 people. Grandma Ethel went to the doctor for the first time in years, a full checkup. Her blood pressure medication finally consistent. She walked a little straighter these days. The Edwards house transformed. New paint, new roof, new windows. Ethel stood on her repaired porch crying happy tears. "Never thought I'd see this house looking so good." But the ripple went further. Deshaun, Miles's friend, applied for a mentorship through the initiative. He got in. Miles told me to apply. He said if he could get helped, so could I. Mrs. Patterson's medical bills were paid. She brought Miles cookies every week now. He finally accepted them. Mr. Earle's farm was saved from foreclosure. He drove past the Edwards house and honked twice every time. "I just opened my door that night. That boy did all the rest." National news ran the story. Other communities reached out to the initiative. But for Miles, the biggest change was quieter. Every Friday afternoon, volunteers gathered at the new Macon Community Center, built on the lot where the Sunoco station used to be. They handed out free meals to travelers on Highway 41. Leading them was an 11-year-old boy with a silver cross under his shirt. Some things had changed beyond recognition. But Miles Edwards was still exactly who he had always been. 1 year later. Miles stood on Highway 41, the same stretch of road where it all began. But everything was different now. The abandoned Sunoco station was gone. In its place stood the Macon Community Center. A bronze sign at the entrance read, "Built through kindness." Every Friday, Miles and a team of volunteers handed out free meals to anyone who needed them. That afternoon, they served 28 people. A truck driver who hadn't eaten since morning, a single mother traveling with 3 kids, an elderly man who reminded Miles of Harold. Each one received food, water, and directions to wherever they needed to go. Each one heard the same words: "No payment necessary. Kindness isn't something you sell." As the sun began to set, Miles helped pack up the last of the supplies. Deshaun nudged him. "Yo, you ever think about how wild this is? 1 year ago, you were walking this road with an empty stomach." Miles smiled. "I try not to think about it too much." "Man, you changed the whole town." Miles shook his head. "I just gave away some chicken. Everyone else did the rest." That evening, Miles sat on his grandmother's porch. The house looked beautiful now. Fresh blue paint, sturdy steps, a garden that was finally thriving. Grandma Ethel rocked in her chair beside him. Stars were appearing in the sky. You know what your mama would say if she could see you? Ethel asked. What, Grandma? She would say, That's my boy. That's my Miles. Miles looked up at the sky. His hand moved to the silver cross under his shirt. I hope she can see, Grandma. Ethel smiled. Her eyes glistened. Oh, baby, she sees. She always sees. They sat in comfortable silence. The neighborhood was quiet, peaceful. A car drove past. The driver honked and waved. Miles waved back. He didn't know the driver. Probably someone who had heard the story. Someone who wanted to say thank you. That happened a lot these days. Miles pulled the silver cross out from under his shirt, looked at it for a long moment, then tucked it back in. Some things you keep close to your heart. Some things you don't need to show the world. You just need to know they're there. The porch light flickered on. Grandma Ethel hummed an old hymn, and Miles Edwards, the black boy who had given away his only meal, sat in the golden glow of everything that kindness had built. This is where the story ends. But for Miles, it was only the beginning. This story started with a question. What would you do if you had almost nothing and a stranger needed help? Miles Edwards answered that question on a cold highway in Georgia. He gave away his only meal. He ran through the darkness for strangers. He refused payment because his mother taught him that kindness isn't for sale. The next day, a stranger knocked on his door, and his life changed forever. But here's the truth. Somewhere out there, right now, someone needs help. You don't have to be a billionaire to make a difference. You just have to choose kindness. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it, like this video. Subscribe to this channel and leave a comment. What act of kindness changed your life? Because kindness is never wasted. It always comes back.
Sometimes the most powerful revolutions don't come with noise, just one person standing their ground. At Beat Stories, we highlight those moments that shift the balance. If this story moved you, hit subscribe, because every week we bring real stories that shake the system.